My name is Eleanor. I'm 18 years old and I live in Austin, Texas. My life might look ordinary from the outside, but if you dig a little deeper, you'll see it's far from perfect. I live with my dad, John, my stepmother, Elizabeth, and her daughter, Emily. My mom passed away when I was 6, and for a long time, it was just me and my dad. He remarried when I was 10, hoping to give me a complete family. But the reality of living with Elizabeth and Emily has been anything but that. In front of my dad, Elizabeth acts like the perfect mother, kind, patient, always singing my praises. Emily plays along too, calling me her pretty sister and pretending to help me with chores. But the moment Dad steps out of the house, everything changes. Elizabeth becomes demanding, treating me more like a servant than a stepdaughter. Emily, she loves to mock me, pointing out every little mistake I make and laughing at my efforts to keep up with the endless list of household chores they dump on me. If something doesn't go her way, she makes sure I'm the one to blame. Dad doesn't see any of it. He works long hours running his business, often traveling for days at a time. Elizabeth and Emily take full advantage of his absence, making my life miserable while keeping up their sweet, loving facade for him. It's exhausting. But I've learned to keep my head down and endure it. I've always hoped that someday Dad might see the truth. Still, a part of me wonders if he even believed me. After all, Elizabeth has perfected her act over the years, and Emily knows exactly how to twist every situation in her favor. It all started on an evening like any other. I had just gotten home from my part-time job at a local bookstore. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the streets of Boston, but the peacefulness outside didn't prepare me for what was waiting inside. As soon as I stepped through the front door, I could hear them, Elizabeth and Emily, laughing in the kitchen. The sound always made my stomach turn because I knew it wasn't the kind of laughter that came from love or joy. It was sharp and biting, the kind that told you they were up to something. "Eleanor," Elizabeth called out, her voice dripping with the fake sweetness she always used when she wanted something. "Come here, dear. We need to talk." I dropped my bag by the door and walked into the dining room, already bracing myself. Emily was seated at the table, scrolling through her phone, while Elizabeth stood by the counter, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Sit down," Elizabeth said, gesturing to the chair across from Emily. I sat, feeling the tension thick in the air. Elizabeth took a sip of her wine, then smiled at me, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We've been planning Emily's graduation party," she began, her tone carefully measured. "It's going to be the biggest event of the year. A once-in-a-lifetime celebration for her accomplishments. Isn't that right, Emily?" Emily looked up from her phone, smirking. "Yeah, it's going to be amazing. All my friends are going to be there. It's going to be unforgettable." I didn't respond, but I had a sinking feeling about where this was going. Elizabeth set her glass down and leaned forward, her hands clasped together like she was about to deliver some grand proposal. "Now, Eleanor, you know we're family, and as a family, we all contribute to each other's happiness. Emily deserves the best, don't you think?" I nodded hesitantly, unsure of what to say. "That's why we decided you should contribute $4,000 toward the party expenses," Elizabeth said, her voice light and casual, as if she had just asked me to pass the salt. I blinked, thinking I must have misheard her. $4,000. I repeated. "Yes," Elizabeth said, her smile never wavering. "You've been working hard at your job, and it's time you step up and support this family. Emily is your sister, after all." Emily let out a short laugh. "Yeah, pretty sister. You should want to do this for me." I stared at them, completely stunned. $4,000. That was more than I made in months of work. My job barely paid enough to cover my own expenses, let alone some extravagant party. "I can't afford that," I said firmly. "I'm sorry, but I can't." Elizabeth's smile disappeared in an instant. Her eyes narrowed and her voice turned cold. "What do you mean you can't? You've been saving money, haven't you?" "I'm saving for college," I said. "I'm not giving up my future for a party." Emily slammed her phone down on the table, her face red with anger. "You're so selfish, Eleanor. You think it's all about you, don't you? We're supposed to be a family, but you act like you're not even part of it." I opened my mouth to argue, but before I could say anything, Emily grabbed her glass of water and threw it at me. The cold splash hit me square in the face, soaking my hair and shirt. "You're not family," Emily shouted, standing up and pointing at me. "You're an outsider. You don't care about us, and we don't care about you." I sat there, dripping wet, my heart pounding in my chest. Elizabeth didn't say a word to stop her. Instead, she crossed her arms and gave me a look of pure disdain. "You've really disappointed me, Eleanor," Elizabeth said. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us." I stood up, my hands trembling with anger. "I'm not giving you the money," I said, my voice shaking. "And you can't force me." Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. "Oh, can't I?" she said, her tone full of menace. "We'll see about that." I left the room without another word, my clothes still damp and my mind racing. For years, I had put up with their manipulation and cruelty, but this was too much. I couldn't let them walk all over me anymore. That night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision. I would record their next conversation. If they thought they could bully me into submission, I'd make sure my dad knew the truth. The next day, when Elizabeth cornered me again, her voice sharp and demanding, I had my phone hidden in my pocket, recording every word. "You're going to give us that money, Eleanor," she hissed, "or you'll regret it. I don't care if you have to sell your stupid college fund. If you don't give us what we need, you can pack your bags and leave this house. Do you understand me?" She had no idea I was recording her threats. I didn't say a word, just nodded and walked away. For the first time in years, I felt like I had some power, and I knew exactly when to use it. 3 days later, my dad came home from his business trip. As usual, Elizabeth and Emily greeted him like they were the perfect wife and daughter, all smiles and affection. I stayed quiet, watching their act unfold, knowing I finally had the truth in my pocket. That evening, Elizabeth insisted on having a special family dinner. The table was set with her best plates, and she served Dad's favorite dish, acting like the devoted homemaker she wanted him to believe she was. Emily, dressed in her usual over-the-top fashion, kept hinting about her graduation party, dropping comments about how excited everyone would be. As we sat down to eat, Emily finally brought it up. "Dad, my graduation party is going to be amazing. Everyone's talking about it already." Dad smiled, clearly pleased. "That's great, sweetheart. I'm glad you're excited. Don't worry about anything. I'll make sure it's a celebration to remember." Hearing that, I couldn't stay silent any longer. I put down my fork and looked straight at him. "Dad, can I ask you something?" He glanced at me, a bit confused. "Of course, Eleanor. What is it?" "Why didn't you tell me you were paying for Emily's graduation party?" I asked, keeping my tone calm but deliberate. Dad frowned, setting his glass down. "What do you mean?" "Of course I'm covering it. Why would you even ask that?" I turned to Elizabeth and Emily, their faces suddenly stiff. Elizabeth tried to laugh it off. "Oh, Eleanor, don't be silly. You know your dad is paying for it. We were just joking with you." "Joking?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "You demanded $4,000 from me for the party. And when I refused, Emily threw water in my face and told me I wasn't family." Elizabeth's face paled and Emily's eyes widened. "That's ridiculous," Elizabeth stammered. "She's making things up, John. You know how dramatic teenagers can be." "I'm not making anything up," I said, reaching into my pocket for my phone. "And I can prove it." Elizabeth lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone from my hands, but I pulled back just in time. "Give me that," she shouted, her mask of calm completely gone. "Elizabeth," Dad barked, standing up. "Sit down." His voice was firm, and for the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. Reluctantly, she sat back down, glaring at me as I unlocked my phone. I scrolled to the recording and pressed play. The room filled with Elizabeth's voice, cold and demanding. "You're going to give us that money, Eleanor, or you'll regret it. I don't care if you have to sell your stupid college fund. If you don't give us what we need, you can pack your bags and leave this house. Do you understand me?" Dad's face went pale as the recording continued. Every threat, every demand, every cruel word echoed through the dining room. When it ended, the silence was deafening. "Is this true?" Dad's voice was low, trembling with anger as he looked at Elizabeth and Emily. Elizabeth's hands shook as she tried to find the right words. "John, I didn't mean any of it. It was just, I was stressed and..." "Enough," Dad said, cutting her off. He turned to Emily, who looked like she was about to cry. "And you? Throwing water at Eleanor? Calling her an outsider?" Emily burst into tears. "I didn't mean it, Dad. I was just upset." Stop," Dad said sharply, his voice rising. "I gave you both a good life. I trusted you. And this is how you treat Eleanor." Elizabeth reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Please, John, she pleaded. We're family. Don't let one mistake ruin everything. Dad stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. Pack your bags, he said coldly. Both of you. I want you out of this house by tomorrow morning. Elizabeth gasped. John, you can't be serious. I am, he said. I've had enough of your selfishness and lies. You've hurt Eleanor for years while pretending to be a family. You don't deserve to stay here. Emily sobbed uncontrollably, and Elizabeth fell to her knees, begging him to reconsider. But Dad didn't budge. Go, he said firmly, and don't come back. As they cried and pleaded, I sat there, feeling a strange mix of emotions, relief, vindication, and a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. For once, I didn't feel powerless. For once, I felt like I mattered. A year later, life felt completely different. Without Elizabeth and Emily in the house, there was a calm I had never experienced before. Dad and I grew closer. He supported my dreams and encouraged me to focus on my studies and my part-time job. I felt free, like I was finally living for myself. One afternoon, Dad and I went shopping at a local market. The sun was shining, and I remember laughing at one of his corny jokes when I heard a voice behind us. John, please, wait. I froze. It was Elizabeth. She looked nothing like the polished, overconfident woman I remembered. Her clothes were wrinkled, her face drawn with exhaustion. She hurried toward us, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. Behind her was Emily, standing awkwardly, her head lowered. John, Elizabeth said again, her voice trembling. Please forgive us. We've lost everything. We've been evicted, and Emily's working at a coffee shop just to keep us afloat. We made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we've learned our lesson. Please, give us another chance. Dad stood still, his expression unreadable. Emily stepped forward, her eyes glistening with tears. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. I was awful to Eleanor. I didn't realize how much I took for granted. Please, let us come back. We'll do better, I promise. I looked at Dad, unsure of what he would do. Part of me wanted him to forgive them, to give them the chance to redeem themselves. But another part of me, the part that remembered every insult, every manipulation, every tear I cried in silence, knew better. Dad sighed deeply and shook his head. I'm glad you've learned the value of hard work, he said, his tone measured. It's a lesson you should have learned long ago. But I can't let you back into our lives. Elizabeth's eyes widened in desperation. Please, John, we've changed. We're not the same people we were before. He shook his head again, this time with more finality. No, you had a good life. A life I worked hard to provide. And instead of appreciating it, you chose greed and selfishness. You hurt Eleanor, who did nothing but try to coexist with you. I won't allow that kind of toxicity to return to our home. Emily began to cry, but Dad didn't waver. Emily, he said gently, I'm glad you're working now. It'll teach you the value of money and effort. But this is your path now. You need to continue it without relying on us. Elizabeth dropped to her knees, grabbing his hand. Please, John, don't do this to us. We have nowhere to go. He pulled his hand away and looked at her coldly. You made your choices, Elizabeth. Now you have to live with them. Goodbye. With that, Dad took my hand and led me away. As we walked through the market, I felt a surge of emotions, relief, pride, and a deep sense of closure. For years, I had been made to feel small, unworthy, and unloved. But now, I was free, truly free. Dad turned to me and smiled. You've grown into such a strong woman, Eleanor. I'm proud of you. For the first time in my life, I believed him. From that day forward, I vowed to keep moving forward, to build a life filled with people who truly cared for me, a life where I could thrive without the shadows of my past. As Dad and I walked away from the market, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time, I truly understood what it meant to choose peace over pain. My past no longer defined me. I was free to create a future filled with strength, love, and purpose. And that was all I needed.